Boyz II Men have captivated the world for almost 4 decades, and the musical trio's award-winning ballads have continued to stand the test of time, a legacy that most groups usually fail to replicate. But did you know that the group went to far extremes to maintain their success? They ripped off producers who worked with them, dated underage female celebrities, and even scammed Grammy Award winner Kandi Burruss millions.
Love the group Boyz II Men as far as them being artists. I think they're amazing, and I have no shade about them, their career, or anything like that. But what I will say is, I did have a bad experience.
Once she turned of age, we had been hanging around each other so much. We've been hanging around each other so much that there became to be some sort of connection.
Not only that, it was also alleged by Katt and other artists that the group started losing their relevance in the 90s when they started treating their producers and other stars horribly. So why and how did Boyz II Men change after gaining fame and success? Did their fame get to their heads?
Right, as artists, we are representations of something that we come from. And so the reason that they couldn't go further than that is because those dudes was no longer pulling girl.
Then the award show comes on, oh, we gotta let somebody win this year, good thing we're not there. And I'm like, these guys are
Let's get into the nitty and gritty of how Boyz II Men came to be and all the dark and evil things they did and hid from the public to maintain their image. In 1991, Cooley High Harmony, the debut from 4 sweet-voiced Philly singers, took the pop world by storm. Their story started with a small group of kids from different neighborhoods who met up at the Philadelphia High School for Creative and Performing Arts. The group went on to sell more than 60 million records and performing in big arenas all over the world. But in the beginning, they were just art school kids with a dream. The group started with Morris, who as a vocal major, learned about classical, jazz, lyrical metaphors, cadences, and harmony structures, all of which would form the foundation for his career. Talking about his lessons, he once said, "They wanted to make sure that we were well-rounded when we left school. It was definitely not a school where you just show up with the latest songs and all of a sudden you're a superstar." A few years in, Morris teamed up with some like-minded vocal majors and they began singing together. The group was sometimes 5 or 6 strong and, at least in the beginning, called itself Unique Attraction. They bought cheap suits and perfumed at a Valentine's Day concert with their pitch-perfect harmonies and synchronized dance moves. Over time, they'd whittled themselves down to a quartet and changed their name to Boyz II Men, after a favorite New Edition song. Like a lot of Philly kids with musical aspirations, the group met up with Charlie Mack, a longtime local music promoter who invited them to a concert. When the group got there, they realized that Mack was running late, and desperate to get inside and meet their idols, they did a little singing, a little sweet talking, and voila, some kind soul donated a backstage pass to their cause. It was while they were backstage that they tracked down New Edition's Bivins and sang him a few bars of New Edition's Can You Stand the Rain? Impressed and intrigued, or maybe just flattered, Bivins gave them his phone number, and that was when their life in the music industry started. Nathan Morris took that Bivins number and called him every day for weeks. "I hounded him," Morris recalls. They talked about music and business, but mainly those calls were Morris convincing Bivins to take Boyz II Men under his wing on a professional level. In the R&B and pop world, New Edition was the closest thing Boyz II Men had to a blueprint. "It's not something that he really thought about doing," says Morris. "I believe that he could do it. I mean, I followed his career, and I saw the role that he played in his group. He saw something in me I didn't even see in myself," Bivins recalled in the Netflix documentary series This Is Pop. Eventually, he agreed. "If it wasn't for Nate Morris," he says, "I would have never been a music executive." In the midst of launching his career as an executive and his post-New Edition act Belle Biv DeVoe, Bivins helped get Boyz II Men signed to Motown, co-wrote several songs with them, and executive produced Cooley High Harmony. Fast forward to 1991, the group released Motown Philly, a jazzy new jack swing banger with sweet vocal harmonies and a hip-hop sheen, which became a runaway hit. That was the first time the world was introduced to these 4 smartly dressed young men from Philly who could harmonize like nobody's business. Nathan Morris from South Philly, Wanya Morris from North Philly, Sean Stockman from Southwest Philly, and Michael McCary from Logan. Motown Philly went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and their next single, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, peaked at number 2. End of the Road finally took Boyz II Men to the top. Originally, you could only find the song as a single, and on the soundtrack to the Eddie Murphy comedy Boomerang, but that was before Motown realized what a gigantic hit it had on its hands. Soon, the label re-released Cooley High Harmony with End of the Road, tacked on as a bonus track, and as a result, the record reached 9 million copies sold, making it certified platinum 9 times over. The songs dominated proms and weddings everywhere. The slow dances, the dancey dances, all of it. Even a song called went to number 16, and this all added up to Boyz II Men landing an opening slot on MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit tour, and taking home the first of 4 Grammys they'd collect over the course of their career. Boyz II Men continued to work with Motown, and their 1994's 2 became an even bigger record than Cooley High Harmony. Only Elvis and the Beatles had achieved back-to-back number ones on the Billboard Hot 100 in the rock era. Total record sales can be difficult to confirm, but 2 has sold something like 12 million copies in the US alone. The record ran away with the Best R&B Album Grammy, while Boyz II Men became, reputedly, the best-selling artist in the history of Motown Records, whose artists include The Supremes, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Lionel Richie. The group then created the Remix Collection, a record that took tracks from Cooley High Harmony and 2, and refurbished them with hip-hop and new jack swing razzle-dazzle like horns and record scratches. The label released it despite Boyz II Men's protests that it was, per Reuters, unauthorized and substandard. Critics agreed the Remix Collection was a strange artifact. Boyz II Men almost seem like guests on their own song. J.D. Considine wrote in the Baltimore Sun, although the record quickly disappeared from the shelves, it somewhat soured Boyz II Men's relationship with Motown and their opinions on major labels in general. After this, the group took a more hands-on approach to their creative output. Eventually, they founded the independent MSM record label and started releasing their own records when it suited them, relying on the majors mostly for distribution starting in 2004. Their track 4 Seasons of Loneliness, a sultry jam and Lewis ballad, quickly became Boyz II Men's 5th #1 hit. But in the 3 years since they'd put out their last non-remix record, the pop music landscape had shifted dramatically. Suddenly, the group was battling for young hearts and minds against the likes of NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, and 98 Degrees, and it wasn't a fair fight. Where Boyz II Men was dubbed a crossover act for their ability to appeal to audiences outside the R&B and urban genres, these new white acts landed on the pop charts from day one. They didn't have to cross over. Pop culture critic Jason King, also in This Is Pop, described these boy bands as basically racial mirrors of what Boyz II Men was doing. None of them quite had the singing chops, but the way they danced and dressed bore more than a passing resemblance. Several of these groups even cited Boyz II Men as an inspiration. I mean, it's typical in urban music, unfortunately, Nathan Morris once claimed. Occasionally, Boyz II Men found themselves lumped in under that boy band umbrella, but it wasn't a comfortable fit. To Morris, it wasn't just about race. We created our own entity and our own image. We wanted to be together. Boyz II Men wasn't generated in a boardroom, he argued. There were no casting calls. They were forged in the hallways of a Philly high school. The group's 1997's Evolution sold 3 million copies, which, though not bad for most artists for Boyz II Men, it signaled a return to earth. The next one, 2000's Nathan Michael Sean Wanya, which they produced and wrote most of, continued the downward trend in sales. In 2002, they released Full Circle, which had high label expectations and lower listener interest. And soon after, Michael McCary left the group. The song wasn't the cause, but it's not easy to pin down a reason beyond personality conflicts. While the remaining 3 members have always insisted that Michael was not serious with music as they were, it was revealed that Michael had been sick and could not perform as he initially did.
Who's missing?
Michael.
That's
Michael, the guy on the left.
What happened to Michael?
Michael actually left the group probably about 11, 12 years ago now. Well, he didn't want to be involved or do it anymore. We actually tried to reach out for him for our 20th anniversary to bring him in and have him, perform with the new album, but things didn't kind of work out.
So Mike was kind of always the odd guy in a sense, Stockman once told host Mark Lamont Hill. Obviously, he was a freak of nature vocally. There's nobody that we've encountered outside of Melvin Franklin from The Temptations that actually spoke the way that he sang. Like he was a true bass. You got guys that act like basses and sing like basses but aren't basses. The group, which stopped by HuffPost Live to talk about their new album Collide, said that McCary enjoyed the ride, but not as much as the other 3. Nathan Morris, or Nate, said McCary didn't like rehearsals or any of the nitty-gritty stuff that comes along with being a top music act. The group even went as far as to claim that his departure from the group didn't affect them in any way, hinting that he might have not been that useful to the group after all. Of course, their statement caused an uproar from their fans, who didn't like the fact that they disregarded one of their members who had contributed significantly to creating what we now know as Boyz II Men.
So it didn't affect you at all?
No. I mean, it actually, the foundation.
The look, maybe? Yeah. But the sound, no.
Officially, McCary said a severe case of scoliosis was his reason for leaving the group, but the remaining members have time and time again disregarded this fact, claiming they fired him and saying that the back condition was only a fraction of his reason for departure. McCary said in 2012 that he wanted to return to the group, but they claimed he balked at signing a contract that would protect the other three should McCary bolt again. Because he left us hanging so many times, we had to cover what we had been doing the last 9 years he wasn't there, Nate said. You can't just run out one day and don't show up. We had to have some sort of contractual agreement to make sure he was going to be there for everything. Nate even told a story where McCary seemed like he was back on board, then later rescinded his support because he wouldn't be a full fourth member. When he called the group to tell his frustrations, they basically hung up on him and continued making their album. Nonetheless, the trio added that McCary's spot will always be open for a return should he want to. There's always a chance. We experienced that with Mike, so his slot will always be open for him, Stockman said. But he has to go about things correctly for it to happen. In the past, Nathan Morris chalked up the split to how young and inexperienced everybody was in their roles in the early days. When Cooley High Harmony dropped, Michael Bivins, aspiring mogul, was 22. Morris was 20. Wanya, the group's youngest member, was 17 and still enrolled at Kappa. In recent years, the trio has settled into a comfort zone, independent of major labels and in control of their own agenda. With their reputation sealed and money in the bank, the group no longer worried about hit songs and top-selling records. Morris claimed he likes where the group is at now, in control of its destiny. That's our creative freedom. That gives us the ability to do whatever we want to do. Because for the last 15, 16, maybe 20 years now, we haven't really had to depend on a record label for anything. The pressure of having to come up with a new hit and people telling you how you've got to make the record, I guess I'm too old for that. While the group tended to shy away from controversies, it has been claimed that they were good at hiding the dark and negative parts of their lives, like how they allegedly scammed Kandi for millions. Kandi Burruss, who is now a staple within Bravo's top-rated Real Housewives franchise, has cemented her legacy in the music business as a multi-platinum, Grammy Award-winning singer and songwriter. Prior to her time on the Real Housewives show, Burruss showed off her vocal skills as the lead singer of the early 90s girl group Escape, which would ultimately launch her toward a solo career. Beyond her on-stage achievements, Burruss nabbed a Grammy in 2000 for her work on the TLC bop No Scrubs, and on top of that, she also holds credits working with artists including Destiny's Child, Mariah Carey, Pink, NSYNC, Ed Sheeran, and Ariana Grande. While she has worked with a lot of artists in the industry, Kandi previously said that an experience in the studio with Boyz II Men left her less than happy about her credit on a song. She went on to say that she's never felt more disrespected. While on an Instagram Live, the singer-songwriter spoke to legendary musician Eddie Levert and his daughter about the most memorable times she's had as a singer-songwriter. In response to their question about who was the most difficult person she's worked with, Burruss referenced the Grammy-winning group. I hate to do it, Burruss said, but then continued, ain't no love lost, I mean, this is 100 years later, so it doesn't even matter. But yeah, I had a bad experience in the studio with Boyz II Men. We fell out after that, it was an issue. I don't think I've ever been disrespected like that before in a studio in my life. It was crazy, really. But at the end of the day, that was a long time ago. Clearly, you know, we've moved past that or whatever. While Burruss didn't specify the issue, other than to say it wasn't about the singing, Wanya Morris, a member of Boyz II Men, responded to her comments by explaining the situation in detail, claiming they had had a fallout due to songwriting credits for a track they all worked on. We've been taught you write a song and you split songwriting credits down the middle, that way there's no discrepancies, Morris said on his own Instagram Live. We finished the song, and once we finished the song, she started talking about splits. Now the song wasn't actually finished, but she started talking about splits. For those who don't know in music industry parlance, splits are the percentage of songwriting credits that each writer is given on an individual song. If the song is a top seller, how much of a split they get can make a big difference in terms of royalties. Now we're from the old school, Morris continued. We're from the I. You write a lyric, I'll write a lyric. It's really about just building this whole thing together. She started talking about splits and we sat there and we were like, splits? First of all, we didn't even finish sing the song yet. We didn't finish writing the song yet. Why would we talk about splits? Morris said that Burruss, who wrote the song's hook along with producer Kevin Shakespeare Briggs, became harder to work with after the group made a little bit of a stink, as he described it. Despite the contention, Burruss and Boyz II Men did work together again. But Morris says for him personally, he could take her or leave her going as far as to throw shade on Kandi. Kandi then responded to Morris' allegations, claiming she had been super excited about working with Boyz II Men, that she had already nearly finished the first song they were to work on and they were going to start the second one.
I was super excited about working with Boyz II Men. At the time, they had set it up for Shakespeare and I to do 2 songs with Boyz II Men. So the particular day they were coming in, I had already started working on the song.
She claimed since they were starting on the second song, she felt it was appropriate that they all know how they were going to share their splits, but the response they gave her was less than satisfactory.
It was my experience at that time that if you do collaborate with anybody, you know, try to go ahead and figure out what the splits are as soon as possible while it's fresh on your brain, because if you don't, they was like,
oh, you want to talk about splits?
And I was like, well, if it's too late, you know, if y'all tired, it's cool, I understand, you know, we can talk about it tomorrow, because I was like, maybe I'm bringing it up and they tired and they think, why am I bringing it up, because it's late at night.
Kandi explained that the group offered to share 10% of each song with her, despite the fact that she had worked on the first song majority by herself. And when she expressed her dissatisfaction, they promised to give her 25%.
For me to just only take 10%, like, that don't make sense. So then they were like, well, you know, we always do split. And then mind you, on top of that, Nate wasn't even there. So I'm like, why are we splitting? And he getting his share and I'm gonna get the same thing as him and he ain't even here.
She said that right after she left them, they called her manager and started talking dirt about her, even claiming she did not have a right to question about splits and that they were not going to give her the 25% after all. This interaction made Kandi to feel insulted and disrespected. And despite the fact that she loved their music, the bad experience made her wary of working with them again.
They said, we just thought about it and
we decided we ain't giving her the 25% on the other song. She can only get 10 on that, but we still gonna keep the 25% on Good Guy. I should be happy that I'm even working on their album.
This is what they're saying to him on the phone, but he's standing right next to me.
Another producer also beefed with Boyz II Men back in 2019 due to the fact that he had been underage, underpaid, and disrespected by the group. Famed producer Dallas Austin worked on the legendary R&B group's 1991 debut record Cooley High Harmony, an album that has gone on to go 9x platinum, but still he was paid breadcrumbs.
And you were in a bad contract doing work for hire, meaning that you're not getting royalties, publishing, masters, nothing, right?
Austin has created music with TLC, Monica, Macy Gray, Sammy, Gwen Stefani, Pink, Outkast, George Clinton, Ciara, Troop, Janet Jackson, Johnny Gill, Deborah Cox, Eric Sermon, Lionel Richie, will.i.am, Brandy, and dozens of others. But it was Boyz II Men who rubbed him the wrong way. In an interview with Vlad TV, Austin said that he was only a teenager when he met Boyz II Men and that he produced nearly every track on the singing group's record, Cooley High Harmony. Although the project was a smash hit, Austin was only responsible for producing 1 track on their follow-up album. When asked why he expressed his dissatisfaction with them.
On the second Boyz II Men album, you only produced 1 song. Was there a reason why you didn't continue to stick with them after having so much success on the first one?
Yeah, it was actually. I didn't like them after that.
Austin said that as a producer, his time was spent in the studio, not out in the street getting gassed up by fans. So his perspective was different. He recalled times he spent in the studio with the group after they became famous and said they would brag about their wealth or act as if they were better than others.
So by the time we were working on the second album, I remember us sitting in the studio and they were going, man, you know, I can't finish counting the diamonds in my Rolex right now. And I was sitting there looking at him, what are they talking about?
He was told that the group wanted to produce their second album alongside him, but he refused. He added that he worked on Thank You with them, and by the end, he wanted to shoot everybody because they were so difficult. To make matters worse, Austin shared that Babyface stopped by the studio while the group was recording because he had a song for them. But the guys were reluctant. According to Austin, when Babyface sang I'll Make Love to You to them, they told Babyface to his face that the song was horrible. Nonetheless, they were forced by their team to complete the track, and it went down in history as one of their most popular singles. Boyz II Men singer Nathan Morris watched Austin's interview and took to Twitter to air out his frustrations with his former collaborator, claiming that everything Austin had said was fabricated. The public was quick to investigate the truth and unraveled an even more dark past of the Boyz. A clip of singer Adina Howard's unsung interview came to light where she claimed that her career crumbled amid the fallout of a liaison she had with Morris while he was dating her Atlantic Records label mate, Brandy.
Two young ladies allowed their egos to get in the way and were kind of going through it about a guy.
Atlantic's then Vice President Sylvia Rohn caught wind of the conflict and advised Howard to lay off Morris, but the singer spoke out about the entanglement with radio personality Wendy Williams, and this act of defiance stalled Howard's career indefinitely. Fans catching up on the past drama concluded that Brandy must have written The Boy Is Mine, as a hint to Adina, with one saying, "I'll never forget finding out that the Boy Is Mine track is actually a diss track about Adina Howard, cause Wanya from Boyz II Men was messing with Adina and Brandy at the same time." As observed in the current fanfare, rumors have long run rampant that Morris was 22 and Brandy was just 16 when they began to date, meaning that he was dating a minor back then. Due to all the backlash he was receiving, Wanya took to social media claiming that they had been close.
Brandy and I were friends in the beginning. Her mother and reached out to me, as well as my manager reached out to Brandy because Brandy was a big fan of mine.
He then went ahead and claimed that they had been together so long that they became lovers despite the fact that Brandy was still a teenager. He also confirmed that they were still dating when she attended Kobe Bryant's prom in 1996 at the age of 17. They reportedly broke up in 1998 before her 19th birthday.
We actually fell in love. Now, we were young. That's what happens. You're young and you fall in love.
While the group has had its share of dark days, it's true to say that they are a legacy that extends beyond time. In 2012, the group was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and several key figures in the Boyz II Men story showed up to sing their praises. Somehow, this group of high school friends has been singing, recording, and performing for 30 years. They've outlasted most of their peers, their competition, and all those boy bands. What keeps them going? A love of performing, Morris said. "No one can tell us how to do it. No one can control it. They still dress to the nines. They still sing for the people, and they do it on their own terms. Still kicking it just for you, but also for themselves." That's it for this video. See you in the next one.